Conservative radio host Dennis Prager is accusing Google of continued censorship. According to PragerU president, several of his videos have been placed on the restricted list. The most recent incident involved a video called The Charlottesville Lie. Prager filed a federal lawsuit against Google earlier this year. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals will hear the oral arguments in the censorship case in August. Dennis Prager joins me now via Skype to expand on his battle with Google. He's the host of The Dennis Prager Show and author of The Rational Bible Genesis. Sir, welcome, and thanks for joining the program.
Thank you for having me.
So let's begin with this first allegation. You've said that the Charlottesville Lie video was placed in the restricted category by YouTube. Does that maintain the case? And what does this tell you about a broader trend that you've seen on your YouTube channel?
Well, it's a very interesting term that you used, allegation. Mm-hmm. Allegation is when something is not provable. So in this case, it's not an allegation, it's a fact.
Right.
They have put 56 of our 325 videos on a list that you cannot see the video if you have any filters against pornography, obscenity, and violence. So Alan Dershowitz, the Harvard law professor, doing a 5-minute video on the founding of Israel is on the list. A 5-minute video on Lincoln's Gettysburg Address is on the list. And as we all know, that was obscenity and pornography filled, the Gettysburg Address.
Right.
Basically, if we put up a video that the left doesn't like, Google doesn't like it. That it's not an allegation, that's a fact. The allegation is that it is motivated by ideology. That's an allegation. I acknowledge that. If you have another reason, then I would love to know what it could possibly be.
So I'm curious about why you think it is that videos, like you said, the Gettysburg Address or the 53, what was it, the founding of Israel, how do those possibly get placed in a bucket of the restricted list like that? What's happened on your YouTube channel?
Obviously, the only people who could answer this are at Google, which owns YouTube. My suspicion, this is even less than allegation. My suspicion is that there are leftists out there in sufficient number to flag stuff off to get Google to automatically put it on the restricted list. What is astonishing is that when we have appealed to Google, we didn't talk to an algorithm, we talked to a human. The human kept it up. And I testified at the U.S. Senate 2 weeks ago, and so did one of the heads of Google. And in my presence, Senator Ted Cruz asked the head of Google, one of the heads of Google, why did you place Mr. Prager's video on the 10 Commandments on the restricted list? I mean, because it's almost enters the world of the absurd. But you don't know the absurd till you hear the answer. The answer was, and you could actually hear a recording of it, it was on C-SPAN. The answer was because it mentions murder. So the 10 Commandments video that I made, most of our videos are not me as the presenter, but I did that one, and that is restricted because it mentions murder. To which, of course, I said at the Senate, I said, well then, PragerU will release a Google-friendly 10 Commandments video called The 9 Commandments.
Right. I mean, that explanation does seem patently absurd on its face. But Dennis, I think it's also interesting just to talk about this from a policy level. What can be done on this? Because as a conservative, as somebody who runs a YouTube channel like this, you talk about conservative values and the founding principles. Is it reasonable to expect the federal government to step in and ensure a fairness standard whenever it comes to a company like YouTube or Google? What do you think?
Okay, so I ended my piece in the Wall Street Journal yesterday with the question, and I've not gotten an answer from those who say, well, we can't interfere because it's private companies, and I am obsessed with limited government, so please know where I'm coming from. But if the four major airlines announced we will not allow passengers who have the Wall Street Journal with them to board our planes, would they have the right? I mean, they are private companies,
Right.
but they're the conduit. If you can't go on the four major airlines, you can't fly much. And if you can't go on Google or YouTube, you don't fly at all. Some people write, and I have not lowered my expectations of humanity enough. I'm still shocked at the stupidity of the idea, start your own alternative. Don't people understand? If I want to reach people who are not conservative, of course I could start a conservative Google. So what? I want to reach the world. I don't want to only reach conservatives. Then what do you do?
So I think you're making a very interesting point, which is that the problem of bias is actually a problem of bigness, which is that these companies are just so large that they dominate private discussion. Facebook and Google, it's essentially a duopoly whenever it comes to advertising and to content distribution. So how are you thinking about the monopolistic levers of government that can be used against these companies? Specifically, you have Senator Josh Hawley, who has a proposal about Section 230 and about targeting these companies. You also have people like Elizabeth Warren talking about straight up using the Department of Justice in an antitrust review, suing these companies. What's your opinion on that?
A deal was made with them. You mentioned Section 230. It was basically the deal, and I explained this in a nutshell in my Wall Street Journal article. The deal was, look, you guys can have free reign. You won't be sued, so you're not going to be like a publisher. A publisher can be sued. The Wall Street Journal could be sued if I said something libelous in my column yesterday. Okay? Right. So they said you can't be sued. If people could put up utter nonsense, total lies, you can't be sued because you will be an open forum. So they go, great, we'll be an open forum, but they're not an open forum. So they have deceived the deal. That's the point. They are freed from any liability for what goes up in exchange for having an open forum. But they don't operate like an open forum. They're governed as if they're an open forum. They operate as if they're a publisher. They censor what they don't want.
I think that's
so,
an
by
interesting
the way,
point, right?
Me,
Yeah.
They all do it. Twitter does it. I mentioned Twitter in my piece, and they did it to us just on Monday with the latest PragerU video. It was trending. It was the highest trending tweet in the country by far, and then all of a sudden it disappeared from the Twitter world. As a popular feed, because the left yelled, and they admitted it. Leftists said, Twitter, why are you helping PragerU?
So you're an advocate for taking the Section 230 away from companies like Facebook and Google?
I'm really just for giving it teeth. Make up your mind, Google, Twitter, Facebook. Make up your mind. Are you a publisher or are you an open forum? That's all. Yeah. You want to be an open forum. If you don't act it, you're deceiving the public. We have to come in. We don't want to be involved. The government does not want to be involved in your work. But if you lie about what you've agreed to with us, what are we going to do? Say, no problem?
Right. So the final question I have for you, Dennis, is that the White House is crafting an executive order. We don't exactly know what. We don't know what the levers that they'll be using in order to put pressure on these companies, but specifically about conservative bias. What do you expect to see in that executive order on a policy level?
I have no idea. That I don't know. This is not what I deal. I deal with the content and the larger issue. The specifics of what the president. Nobody knows what he might come out with. All I know is because the left cannot abide free speech. It had, since Lenin, There is no example. There are total examples of liberals loving free speech. Leftists have never, in any society on earth, allowed free speech when they could suppress it. They have brought this problem on themselves. None of us want to interfere with an open internet.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Dennis. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll have more Rising for you after this.